Welcome back to the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon. And today we welcome back Dr. Sharzad Green to talk all about supplements in menopause, part 1. Dr. Green is a pharmacist who received her Doctor of Pharmacy degree from the University of Arizona in 1990. For the past 20 years, her practice has been laser focused on women's health and integrative medicine. She is passionate about learning new things and teaching others. She is the formulator of FabuVag, the all-natural vaginal moisturizer, and you can get it at fabuvag.com. During the podcast, we start off talking about permission and how we are programmed to wait for permission as women. We then talk about how we have a relationship with ourselves first before any other person. And we talk a little bit about the use of lubricants and that sort of thing in the FabuVag. Then we move into supplementation in menopause and discuss information overwhelm, the sheer volume of options on the drugstore shelves and online, and how marketing attempts to drive our behavior. And that may not be the best thing. We then go over the early perimenopausal symptoms and what they mean, and why expert advice is so important when it comes to your health and supplements. We talk about the role influencers on social media play in our decisions as consumers, how paying for expert advice may actually lead to an increase in your bottom line when it comes to supplements. We talk about the danger of over-the-counter hormone supplementation, and we go into some specific symptoms like insomnia, memory issues, bone health, and saggy skin, and the ways we can supplement to help them. Now, at the end of the episode, make sure you visit drmichellegordon.com/podcasts, where you can find the show notes, plus the links to the books and resources mentioned in the episode. We also have an easy-to-follow bone broth recipe for you as a download on the resource page, so don't miss that. Now, if you enjoy the episode, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you are always the first to know when each episode is released. And thank you for all of the 5-star reviews. I do appreciate you. And if you haven't left a review yet, please leave a 5-star review on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts so more women can find it. No one should have to go through this alone. Now, if you have questions about the topics covered in this or any other podcast, I invite you to open a conversation with me on Instagram at Dr. Michelle Gordon, or send an email to info@menopausemovement.com. I promise I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Now, let's get to Dr. Green and part 1 of supplements in menopause. And thanks so much for being a part of the Menopause Movement. All right, this is Dr. Green and Dr. Gordon on supplements. So we were talking about gender norms, and I did a whole podcast all on it today to just kind of deal with, like why do we wait as women? Why do we wait for permission? Why are we afraid of things, like that? And so it's So, and you know what I did, which I thought was so empowering, and it's funny how the universe makes things work out, is that I had the haircut on Friday, and we did a build up to it on Facebook and said, hey, I'm going to do a big reveal. And so I made the decision to do it. But then like every day we did a countdown. And then I did. Yeah. So I did it live. And I had like a whole bunch of people on the live, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this thing, and then she gave me the razor, and I did it myself, the first bit, and it was so freaky. And it was really, really cool. But what happened was, I love this photographer, Caroline White. Caroline White does the most amazing, portraits, right? And so I texted her and I said, hey, do you have some time on Saturday? Because I would really I'd like to get some photos to kind of validate this new look. And so that's what came of it.
Oh, wow. That looks good.
And that's just from the back of the camera.
You just did this like 2 days ago?
So on Friday, I cut my hair. On Saturday, I went for a photo shoot. And that photo shoot, it just helped me feel like empowered and fierce and fearless. And it was really, really cool. And so now I'm like, I look and I'm like, my hair's short, but I don't see my brother anymore. And I don't see my dad. Now I see me, So today I don't know if it's brave. I think it's just like pushing up against the societal norms, just like everything else. And so today on my Facebook Live, I said, listen, is it bravery or is it just, pushing up against societal norms? And who's going to give me permission? And why do we wait for permission as women? Why do we wait for permission? The men don't wait for permission. They just do whatever the hell they want.
That is so true. That is so true. Yeah. I cannot imagine a man, asking anybody. I mean, they just do it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We never, I mean, I don't even dare go short anymore because it's kind of like, I'm used to being a little bit longer, but it's so interesting. I'm good for you. Good for you. I'm so glad that you did it.
Well, I think we're going to go ahead and leave this little conversation in as part of the podcast because for you to say, you were just talking about how it's, it's okay for a man, but not okay for a woman. I mean, and I think that permission plays such a big role. It plays, I just came off of talking to Julia Lally, who's coming up. She's this week's podcast and probably next week's as well, all about pleasure and and how when we have a vibrant, and this plays into you too, because when we have a vibrant, healthy sex life, it just like spills over to our whole lives, right? And it just makes us feel so powerful to have the ability to either surrender or, be close to somebody or even just close with ourselves. There's so much in, sexual expression. And I know, you have FabuVag to help with that. And that's something that's really great. And that's your own proprietary lube, right?
Yeah, it's for empowering women. And I try to be very careful when I word it because not everybody is in a relationship with another person. They may be in a relationship with themselves.
Sure.
And, if it helps them, hey, that's wonderful.
But that doesn't mean that sexual pleasure. I mean, if you're not with somebody that, again, I spend a lot of time talking about like puritanical norms. And, I mean, I grew up in white Christian America where masturbation was like not okay. But, why do we have this urge to have this feeling if it's not something that's, given to us as a means of expressing ourselves fully, right?
Right.
And so, we're in relationship with ourselves first and we have to make that work.
That's true.
And if we can't make that work, then, how are we ever going to be good with somebody else?
That is so true. That, and I always say it as a joke. I say, we've been given such high libido as teenagers and everybody forbids teenagers from being sexually active.
Yeah.
And then by the time you get past having kids and life, you get to a certain age that, yeah, you can have sex, but some people don't really want to anymore. It's like they're just past that price. I say, enjoy it while you can.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not promoting promiscuity with our children and teenagers, but I'm just saying that, there are some boundaries that we've set or the society has set or religion has set that just do not make sense.
That's true. And I think we're gifted with a lot of sexuality as children, but as teenagers. So now I'm 55. So, I look at an 18-year-old as a child, but, I think, when sexual expression, during puberty is when we start to really feel sexual feelings and, and so at that time, we're our bodies are changing, we're changing our relationship with ourselves. We're starting to walk into our power as adults. And I think that evolutionarily, right? I mean, the younger you have a offspring, the more likely that you're going to be able to have more. And so you look at it from that perspective, and then the fitness of a species, it has to do with how many offspring the species has, not about the male being, strong and powerful and fighting off the bad guys, which is, kind of funny because I mean, I talk a lot about the patriarchy, and I talk a lot about how, we're taught that there's a male God, and we're taught that men, are so many things. And when I was talking to Julia today, I was like, I had this whole thought of myself in a very masculine sense for a really long time, because everything is, we're just so bombarded with male masculinity. But in reality, when you look at the evolution of, evolutionary biology, it's only about the females of the species. The males, all they do is contribute sperm. And so even the patriarchy has taken that and turned it into, the pounding of the chest, and just like to suppress the female energy. Anyway.
Yeah. You have a point there.
Yeah. So I had one of my members said that they wanted to know all about supplements for menopause. And I thought this would be a really good, now we've got, in the Menopause Movement membership and in the Meno system, there are a couple of videos that are all about supplements, where Dr. Val and I go through them, and I go through them myself. But I thought it'd be really good to get a pharmacist's take on what you think the best menopause supplements are, depending on the symptoms. So, I'm just going to kind of let you take it away, and then I'll kind of contribute where I can.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
So what you want me to talk about is not necessarily general supplements that are good for women who are menopausal, but specifically certain supplements
I want you to talk about
their symptoms.
Whatever you're comfortable with. So if you want to talk about it by symptom, then that's great. I mean, just take it away and talk about it. You mention certain symptoms here and there, but at the end of the day, if you've got supplements that you recommend to all your patients, then that's fine too. But I just thought it would be really good to get a pharmacist's take on what supplements you recommend, because I know what I recommend, and I'm a doctor. I'm not with the drugs as much as you are.
Okay.
All right. Great.
Certainly.
All right. So we have you here, and as a pharmacist, I just want to kind of get an idea of what you think are the best supplements for women in menopause, and if there's certain symptoms that you think should be treated, or some generalist, whatever you think. How do you talk to your patients about supplements?
Great. I haven't worked with women in particular for the past 20 some years. I have learned a few pearls, both from researching supplements and also from what the patients tell me. So today I would like to share some information with you, and then I'll go into some general things that can be really helpful too for women, especially when in menopause.
Okay.
Number one is that occasionally I walk into a Walgreens or CVS or, wherever, a drugstore, high health, a nutritional supplement store, and I'm just overwhelmed as a pharmacist. I get overwhelmed by the number of things that are available. You are just simply looking for a calcium supplement. Now, you go in, you think, okay, I'm just going to run in and grab a calcium supplement or a fish oil. And when you stand there, you look and you're so overwhelmed. And I say that because as a woman, I put myself in the shoes of a person who does not really know much about supplements. Now, maybe I'm more overwhelmed because I know a lot about supplements, and therefore I like to analyze them. So maybe an average person doesn't feel that overwhelmed. To me, I pick this up and I pick that one up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really confusing. So then what do most women do? For the most part, the ones who don't really know how to compare these things, we compare prices, right? So we say, oh, today it's a buy one, get one free. Or I'm going to go to one of those big box warehouse stores and get myself 400 count of fish oil at $11.99, and it's $3 off. So good deal. I can save that $3 and buy myself 2 hot dogs and, whatever. So it becomes really comical. And then occasionally I walk into a health food store, health supplement store, I should say, high health, GNC, you name it, vitamin store. And I go in there and I'm just amazed at the salesmanship of the kids, and I call them kids in a loose term, but essentially they don't have any business telling anyone what to take, except that they are good salespeople. So they've been told, okay, if a woman comes in, she looks like, she's middle-aged, then yeah, throw this and that at her. Of course, everybody pretty much has problems with weight. So, give her this supplement, and then for bones, that supplement, and for memory, this other supplement. So then before you know it, the person ends up buying $200, $300 worth of supplements. And what I see as a pharmacist is, at the tail end of it, whenever a patient makes an appointment with me, I always ask them, I say, take a picture of the front and the back of your supplements. I need to see what's exactly in each and every one of them. And then those who come and see me, actually, they bring the bag, and sometimes it's overwhelming. And sometimes they're so embarrassed because they're like, I know, I have no idea why I got this. I think that the guy at the, counter told me to get this. And, my friend was taking that other one. My neighbor was, so it's a compilation of all these different supplements. So I feel your pain. I feel the pain of all of us women, because we're at the mercy of, the sales prices, the salespeople who are pitching these things. And nowadays the internet is another source. So Amazon just kind of pops up all these, ads to us. Oh, if you were looking up, something for menopause, then they're going to show you a ton of other things for menopause too.
Absolutely.
So it's a lot of mind game, essentially.
Yeah.
That's my introduction to supplements.
Okay.
A lot of times, as a woman reaches or approaches menopause, when they're in that perimenopausal phase, they may start experiencing some minimal or not so profound symptoms. Sometimes people start having difficulty sleeping at night. Some people start having mild hot flashes and night sweats, mood swings, irritability, starting to see some hair loss. So all these different things, and then our skin starts, getting saggy. So we're always looking for the newest and the best supplement out there. First of all, I always encourage you to talk to an expert. So if you can find an expert in your area, or nowadays through virtual internet, you can definitely find some experts, and make sure that they're giving you solid advice. They're not, they don't have skin in the game.
So tell me why you think talking to an expert is so good, because like so many people will, go to Dr. Google and then go make a decision based on Google. So let's talk for a second, because, what we've seen in America, I would say over the last 10 years, as I've practiced medicine, I've seen just a cheapening of the value of our education. And, we're all called providers now. We're not called doctor anymore. And we're lumped in with people with much, much, much lesser education, the nurse practitioners and the physician assistants. And so the fact that we have the expertise of having spent, I spent 15 years plus of my life, learning how to do a craft. And now I don't have any more authority. I don't have any more, So I'm sure you've seen some of that. It's like the dumbing down of medicine, and the loss of respect, from corporate medicine and the way that we've been treated, I think, by the media. So, how would you recommend that, why are you saying that expert advice is so important? Because there's a lot of information out there.
That's a very valid point, and very interesting, because I am saddened by the fact that women and people in general tend to listen to, quote, influencers on social media more so than their doctors and their pharmacists, and those of us who have actually put in the effort and learned about medicine, about health. It just is mind-boggling that a celebrity can come and endorse something. And we all know that those celebrities usually get paid for their endorsements.
Yeah.
It's not because they've gone through school and studied bone health or whatever, the case might be, and learned all the details and decide, okay, well, this, I can now compare 20 different products and tell you that this one is better. They're going simply off of what the manufacturer or whoever is promoting that product is telling them to tell us. So the simple concept of influencers is just not a very positive thing with me. Yes, maybe with makeup and hair, You don't need an expertise with those things. Yeah, absolutely do that. But I don't expect a newscaster to, just because she has 1.4 million followers, to come on social media and say, oh, today I would like to tell you what I take for my skin. This product is really good. If you take it internally, it also helps your bones, and it helps, all these things. And it just kind of amazes me. Yes, tell me about your skin. Tell me about the topical things that you're using, but you cannot really tell me internally. In all reality, you don't have the expertise to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
But most of us fall for it. So that's my pet peeve with expert advice. We do need expert advice. There's a reason doctors go to school for so long. There's a reason pharmacists are such nerds and we study so much and so hard. Medicine, it's boring to everybody else, but somebody's got to do it, and hopefully we learn. And even with pharmacists or doctors out there, you are in practice. You see that not everybody takes that interest. Right?
Yeah.
So even with them, you have to be selective.
Sometimes, no, I mean, I get, and patients will come with piles of papers that they've printed off from the internet. And then we have to say, well, this is a myth and that's not true. And this, Wikipedia is not accurate. A source. Oh, God, no. Wikipedia is just it's crowdsourced. It's not real, you guys. Wikipedia, anybody can go and edit Wikipedia, and it can be truth or not truth. And so it's come up as this source of truth, but there's nothing validated about it. I mean, I'm sure that there's all sorts of there are disclaimers that say, well, there's no source for that, but at the same time, I mean, it's crowdsourced. It's not real.
That's so true. So I say, when you talk to an expert, be very selective. For example, I'm going to use an example that comes up all the time. So I've got, for example, 2 weeks ago, I had a patient with mild chronic kidney failure. So she comes to me with all these supplements, and that's something that I do. People actually make appointments with me and either bring me all their supplements or send me the pictures, and then I actually go over that with them. So one by one, and that's a painful process, because that a lot of these supplements have got more than one ingredient. They've got 10 different ingredients, and they're pretty much all herbal. So fortunately, as a pharmacist and as an adjunct professor, I have access to a lot of different resources where I can actually look up and see, okay, what does the data say? Is there any data for this? Is this going to actually harm this woman? Because she went to the drugstore and she was complaining about joint pain, and somebody recommended curcumin for her. Is that appropriate for her? Is that going to affect her kidneys or not? That's just an example, for example. So we have all these experts, but they're not necessarily experts in that particular area either. So you have to be really careful.
Well, I mean, there's this, not only that, so I think it's easy to go to the pharmacy and say, I have joint pain. And then you get recommended to take Motrin, say. And for somebody who's in mild kidney failure, Motrin is a no-no.
Right.
Right. And so they're not going to know your medical issue. And that's where the expertise of somebody who's gone to school and understands really comes into play. And it makes sense to spend your money on your health. And so much time, so many of us, we don't, and I was just talking about this today because, we have our live event in Manchester on the 25th of April, and I have a lot of women saying it's too expensive. And it's not much. It's like less than the cost of going out to dinner, right?
Yeah.
Plus we include lunch. So I'm talking about this. I'm like, when was the last time you actually had to think about going to buy your supplements or going to get your hair cut or get your nails done, and why is it that you're looking at this opportunity to really take control of your health, your menopause, your life, and it's not worth it. And so it's the same. I use the same argument here. It's like, why not go see your doctor or your pharmacist, spend some time, make an appointment with Dr. Green, and go over everything you're taking to see if there's some interaction. And that's the thing about supplements, because supplements can have huge, huge drug interactions, drug interactions, drug supplement interactions, drug food interactions. I mean, there are a lot of problems. And that's where the expertise of somebody like you, who's understands the herbal stuff and the prescription stuff and all of that, can really help.
Absolutely. One more thing that I wanted to add is A lot of times when patients come to me with the bag full or send me pictures of all these different supplements, we end up saving them money at the end of the day, because you look at the duplicates and you look at, what are you taking this for? And what is that for? There are so many different reasons that they don't even remember. Why did they start taking this or that? And when we consolidate or give them another option, it's just amazing. So that could definitely affect their budget. At the end of the day, they may save like $100 a month, because these supplements are very expensive. If you want good supplements, they're going to be super expensive.
Yeah, so good quality supplements are expensive, and I think at the end we can talk a little bit about brands that we like, that are consistent in their manufacturing. But $100 a month, you guys, is $1,200 a year. I mean, what could you do with an extra $1,200 a year? And if it costs you, $300, $400, $500 for a couple of visits to someone just to kind of straighten this out and sort it, I mean, if you're going to save, that's an extra $700 in your pocket. If you're spending $500, it's kind of a no-brainer. And so remember, when you have somebody who can really pay attention to all of the things you're taking, and then say, well, this goes with this and this goes with that, but that doesn't really help with your, one of the women who asked, has a condition called IBS, and I wonder if sometimes it's like her supplements, maybe, so she could probably really benefit from talking to you about that. And, so just, I think, getting the expert advice of somebody who can really take a look at, all of the things that are inside of all of these supplements that and we do it with the best intention, right? We take supplements because, the influencers say it, or the doctor says it, or I read this and I read that. And the fact that we've gone to school for as long as we have gives us the ability to take all of that information, kind of funnel it down and say, this one's good, that one's not. This is going to make you feel better. Take this one away, add this one. And at the end of the day, usually it's simplifying. Usually it's like, you're taking way too much. Let's just cut down to this and let's see how you feel.
I agree. I totally agree with you. So let's start by talking about going back to perimenopause and the common things that I see women use. And sometimes they do work. I see women use progesterone cream that is available over the counter. When it comes to progesterone cream, I always like to see a blood level first before you start anything. So that's my pet peeve. I usually like to see your progesterone level the second 2 weeks of your cycle. So if you have a 28-day cycle between the first day of each period, then day 15 to onset of the next period is a good time to check that. And if it is low, then yes, you could try supplementing with some over-the-counter progesterone. You have to be very careful. Not all progesterone is created equally. The measurements are very different. That's why I like it to be actually by prescription, because then it's compounded and accurately measured and you're giving yourself a controlled thing. But if you really must, then go with something that's got a pump, a metered dose, so you can actually measure it right. Don't just go, okay, well, a quarter of a teaspoon in this jar. Well, everybody's quarter teaspoon is different than everybody else's. So that's my thing with progesterone.
Well, it's funny because if you're going to take remember, it's a hormone, and hormones affect your whole, they don't just affect, it's not just going to affect, if you're having like problems with libido, or you're having trouble with sleeping, or whatever reason, you're taking the hormone. Hormones like affect the whole function of the cell. It's not they're lock and key mechanisms in there, and there's a huge amount of biology that's involved there, biology and physics. And so when you start messing with your hormones, that can affect your brain, and it can affect your mood, and it can affect your sleep and your weight and all of these things. And so I would never take a hormone without expert advice. I would never buy an over-the-counter hormone. The closest thing I come to is like, phytoestrogens and taking like flax, and that's, and I don't think you can really take too much of that. But, I would just be really, really careful when it comes to any over-the-counter hormone.
I agree. I totally agree. But you and I know that it's happening out there. So if you must, just be really careful. It's always best to check your level. It's always best to be under the supervision of an expert. But if you end up buying something over the counter, at least buy a good one and not just something that's in a jar.
What are some of the symptoms of like too much progesterone?
Too much progesterone could actually, for those of you who've been pregnant, you know how the breasts get engorged.
Yeah.
You feel really tired and groggy, like you can't really move. It may increase the appetite and therefore weight gain oftentimes.
Yeah.
So those are the common things that happen with too much progesterone. You really don't want to do this on your own. It's not a good idea. Now, the progesterone that's available over the counter is much milder than what we usually give as prescription, but it still does have some progesterone in it. So you have to be very careful.
All right, great.
All right. Then a lot of women complain about insomnia, difficulty sleeping. And the question is, well, what is it that wakes you up? Or do you fall asleep and then wake up? Or do you have a hard time falling asleep? So all those questions, again, somebody needs to kind of hash it out and say, okay, well, what's going on here? But sometimes it's the hot flashes or night sweats that wake you up. So you need to address the source of the problem. Sometimes it's the worries, because as you get to a certain age and you may have teenagers that you worry about, and then you have aging parents that you worry about, and then there's your job, and there's a coronavirus that's like worrying all of us.
Yeah, coronavirus is pretty big right
all
now.
Night long. So
yeah,
all those worries affect your cortisol level, and therefore that rise in cortisol in the middle of the night can wake you up, or the rise as you go to bed may make it difficult for you to fall asleep. So again, addressing the source of the problem is the main thing. Some people resort to melatonin, and melatonin is okay in low dose and occasionally, but not on an everyday basis. It really does not work on an everyday basis. So I don't think that's really your solution. Some people take diphenhydramine, which is like generic Benadryl.
Yeah.
Again, occasionally, you can do that, but on a regular basis, it's got side effects. It causes constipation, dry mouth. It just is not the best thing.
It's anti-slud, right?
Yeah, in the morning.
Anti-slud. Yeah.
Exactly. So you really don't want to do that.
So just for the watchers, as somebody who went through medical school, and when we were learning pharmacology, one of the parasympathetic system things is this acronym SLUD, and that stands for salivation, lacrimation,
olfactory.
Or no, urination and defecation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, SLUD. And those are the parasympathetics. So salivation obviously is in your mouth. Lacrimation is in your eyes. That's tears. And then urination and defecation are things that happen with parasympathetic nervous system. So I just wanted, because I said SLUD, so I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that.
The way we learned it, and yours is definitely great. The way we learned it was dry as a bone, blind as a bat.
Yeah.
And mad as a hatter, all those things that you.
But doesn't that have to do with calcium deficiency? The depression, that's because those. Yeah, unless well, no, because you don't get that with calcium. I'm thinking of something else: stones, bones, and psychic overtones. That's calcium.
No, yours is different than mine, but yeah. So basically, it's got the take-home message is that they do have side effects, and you really don't want to do them or take them over a long period of time. Occasionally it's okay, but don't do it on a regular basis. So that's as far as insomnia goes. Then memory issues becomes very evident. People complain to me that they just feel like they're in a fog. They can't really think.
Yeah.
They're looking for words. They forget people's names. And this, by the way, so many women come to me and say, I'm so worried about Alzheimer's. And this is a very quick and dirty way for me to ask them a simple question. I say, okay, so if you did something this morning, you went to work this morning, and this afternoon you came and saw me, and I asked you, what did you do this morning? And you really have a hard time remembering it, then that's a problem. Like you absolutely have no idea. You really have to sit there and say, what did I do this morning? But if it is something like, oh, well, what did you eat, 2 days ago? And it was not really anything to remember, then I'm not worried about it. Still with that, the hormonal change in women definitely can cause mental fogginess and difficulty remembering things. I
Yeah.
always recommend a good fish oil. Omega-3 fatty acids are big in my medicine cabinet. I love omega-3 fatty acids, and there are certain criteria to pick a good fish oil. For example, I say, first of all, you have to make sure that it's a reputable manufacturer that does testing on their products. Contamination can be a major issue with anything that is derived from fish or
Yeah.
marine animals. It's just one of
Especially
those
after
things.
Fukushima.
Yep. So
Yeah.
you've got to make sure that you pick a good manufacturer that actually stands behind their products or states there that, our product has been third party tested, no contaminants, whatever. If you cannot find something to that effect, at least go for something that says the source of the fish is small fish, such as sardines and anchovies. They usually don't accumulate as much contaminants in them. Then, as far as the ingredients with fish oil, there's all these omegas, but here is a simple way to look for a good content in a fish oil. You have to look for EPA and DHA. Those are the two omega-3 fatty acids that are very important. So you want to have enough EPA and enough DHA. I usually say, as a general rule, make sure you get at least 600 milligrams of EPA per day and 400 milligrams of DHA per day. Studies have shown that a good omega-3 fatty acid can potentially lower your triglycerides, can work as an anti-inflammatory, so it actually may help your joints, and it could definitely, the DHA part is great for your brain function. The EPA part has been studied, small study, for depression, and it has been shown that EPA can be helpful for depression.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many reasons why we take omega-3 fatty acids. And another study showed that taking omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA, can actually help with hot flashes and night sweats. Now, these are not strong studies, but because fish oil is so good for us in general, I always recommend a good fish oil.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because we know for a fact that fish oil lowers triglycerides because we prescribe it, right?
Right,
We prescribe it for
exactly.
hypertriglyceridemia,
Mm-hmm.
and what's really great about those prescription strengths is that they're super clear. You can look through them. You know that they're really they're highly
Fine. Yeah.
refined and good for you. And actually, that if I'm going to take a fish oil, that's the only one I'm going to take.
Mm-hmm.
And you can probably get your doctor to prescribe it, which may actually save you a couple bucks too.
Right.
So,
That's another option. That's another option.
yeah. And then
But
what
there are
about?
some good ones too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, at the end, we're going to go through like which manufacturers we like the best. But what about eating wild caught salmon? Is that going to give us enough if you eat wild caught salmon once a week?
Once a week or twice a week won't cut it, really.
Okay.
You have to eat it pretty much at least 5-6 times a week.
All right. What's next?
All right. One of the most important things is calcium,
Ah,
because we worry about our bones. Our hormones are
right.
declining, and as our hormones start dropping, the quality of our bones are at risk. They tend to get more brittle. We have to be very careful with our bones. Before I even talk about supplements, for bones, you've got to do weight-bearing exercises, and you don't
Yeah.
have to lift weights. Even a stretch band would do. Squats, lunges, they're all good.
Yeah. Body
Whatever
weight stuff.
strengthens your bones, your muscles will strengthen your bones. So
Planks.
yeah, that's how I explain it to people. So as you see more muscles being built, then that's good for your bones. That's very important. Then look
Yeah.
at your calcium intake from your foods, okay? Calcium-rich foods, green leafy vegetables are excellent. Sesame seeds are really a great source of calcium. Of course, dairy products are
No,
wonderful.
I disagree with you there.
No?
Dairy products are not a very good source of calcium.
Okay,
And
tell me why.
that is a lie that was manufactured by the Dairy Council. So when you compare dairy products
Okay.
to whole food, the whole food it just wins hands down. Green leafy vegetables, sesame seeds. There's a few others that are, because I didn't do enough research before this episode, so I'm sorry. But I will say that dairy.
So serving per serving, like comparing like 1 cup per 1 cup.
There's not. So dairy is the perfect food for a baby cow. And we are the only species that eats another species' milk. Okay, so I'm always been a very real advocate that dairy is not necessarily for us. Fermented dairy, I feel a little bit differently about. So if we're going to have a little bit of cheese, I can see that as like a sprinkling for flavor, or yogurts, which are also, because then we can help keep our gut microbiome going. But dairy products, and that was, I want to say that was like from the Milk It Does a Body Good campaign, which was, 80s into 90s, I think, and talking about calcium and strong bones. And it's just a crock. It's just a marketing ploy. So.
Okay. Well, I'll have to look into that, because I know that a lot of us do resort to dairy. I don't really do much dairy because, as a lot of us have noticed, we have become lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that's the reason. Maybe
I think we're all born lactose intolerant, actually. and if you give a baby, cow's milk, they're going to throw it up because it's not meant for them. They're going to eat human milk, right? And so it's not really an allergy. It's just an intolerance, and it's an intolerance because we are a species that is, can you imagine going for an ice cream store, ice cream cone made of human milk?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That'd be kind of weird, right? But I think I'd be more prone to want that than because that's like human food. So, and the dairy people who love dairy, I understand. I do. I mean, I grew up drinking milk. I grew up drinking cream. Right. I still like the taste of cream, but I can tell you for sure that I feel better when I'm off dairy. So, sorry,
well, thank you for that note. No, thank you for that note, because there's so many different opinions about it. But my point was that what I tell my patients to do is actually go online and check out the calcium content of the foods that you usually eat. So whether it's dairy, if it's broccoli, spinach, hummus, which has sesame seeds, almonds, almond milk, whatever it is. So take a tally of that and add it up together and see how much calcium you're getting from your foods. That's the best source of calcium, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
To get it from your foods. If you're not, let's say, I recommend, for an average woman, maybe 1,000 milligrams of calcium a day. If you discover that you're not getting enough, then make up the deficit by taking supplements. Okay?
Yeah.
So there are some women who come to me and say, hey, you know what? I'm really bad at eating fruits and vegetables, or anything that's got calcium in it, or, anything healthy. Give me something that would help me. And that's when we make up the deficit and say, okay, well, this is what you need to take. But really start off by exercising, weight-bearing exercises, and then figuring out how much calcium is in your diet, and then make up the deficit. When you're making up the deficit, you've got to be careful and not just supplement yourself with calcium. Because remember, when you are getting your calcium from food sources, there's other vitamins and minerals and nutrition that comes with it. So it helps the calcium to get absorbed and go into our bones. When you are supplementing, if you're just taking calcium, that's not going to be enough. You've got to make sure that you get enough magnesium. You've got to check your vitamin D level. And there's other things too. Vitamin K is really important for the absorption of calcium. So there's a lot of different things that we have to take into consideration when we give you calcium supplements. There's different ones in the market. You have to be careful. Do not take all your calcium in a day all at once, because your body can only absorb so much, and you cannot just force feed yourself calcium. You can't just wait until the end of the day and take 1,000 milligrams of calcium and hope that it works. So
Well, I
all
think
those
there's
things are
also,
important.
I think it's also important, especially when it comes to calcium, that you are in the care of a medical professional, a doctor, pharmacist, because the studies have shown that just plain old calcium supplementation unabated can increase the plaques in your arteries and can lead to heart attacks, and it can also lead to stone formation like kidney stones. So it's super important to make sure that when when you're taking calcium that you're working with somebody. And we know that there's a disease that comes from the parathyroid gland, hyperparathyroidism, where the calcium is too high. And then these people start making, this is the stones, groans, and psychic overtones that I was talking about before, where they're having, multiple kidney stones, and they feel kind of weird, like they're psychologically unstable a little bit. And then they have like muscle aches and pains. And so if you're having any of those symptoms, and, often, I'll make a little secret here, but, those of us who study this stuff, we've all been there. And so when we start to study it, we have medical student syndrome, or maybe you have pharmacy student syndrome, where you're studying it and you're like, all of a sudden you've got it. And,
Yep.
And so all these things that I'm telling you, don't take them to heart, because all we're trying to do is educate you. And we don't want you to think that, you're sick now. But if you're going to take calcium, especially calcium without vitamin D, it won't get absorbed, and you have to make sure. But remember also, almost everyone is deficient in vitamin D. So vitamin D is another supplement that almost everyone needs, but you've got to do a blood test to make sure you're not taking too much.
Thank you for saying that, because so many people don't realize it, and they're like, well, I've been taking vitamin D 5,000 units for like 5 years now. And I'm like, have you had your level checked? If it's a really good supplement, your level is probably really, really high now. But it's sad, because oftentimes when we check it, it's actually not high, because again, if you're not taking a good quality supplement, even though it says 5,000 units on it, you're probably getting 1,000 units, if you're lucky. Allow the scientists do their scientific job. There's a reason for it, and it's best to do it scientifically rather than just kind of shoot in the dark.
Yeah, for sure.
So we talked about the bones. Now, along with that, another thing that has been brought to my attention over years is our skin. Of course, as we get older, our skin becomes saggier. Okay. It's no secret. And one of the questions that I'm always asked is, what do I do for my skin? Hormones can be helpful for your skin. I want you to know that. But again, not everybody can use hormones or wants to use hormones. We've got to take good care of our skin. Number one is, the more you protect your skin from the sun when you're younger, the better it is as we get older. But when it comes to that droopy, creepy skin, it's usually because of lack of collagen. Therefore, we've seen a surge of different collagen supplements in the market. And I just had a blog and a little blurb on, or a video on social media about collagen, because not every collagen is the same, is equal. You've got to take a collagen. Number one, most important thing to pick a collagen is to make sure that it comes from a safe source. Collagen is an animal product, and it comes from the cartilage of animals. So I'm going to scare you for a second here.
Oh, good.
So
I like being scared. Not a big fan of horror, though.
Oh my gosh.
I don't like horror.
This scared me when I was reading it, because so if they are extracting this collagen from a sick animal that has a disease, that has a virus, mad cow disease, whatever it is, and they are processing it, making it into a powder or a capsule, whatever, and giving it to us humans to consume, then that's a problem.
Yeah. And it's probably like a byproduct of I imagine it comes from horses' hooves, and it comes from the bones from cows, from the cattle industry and that sort of thing.
Fish and cows are big.
But also maybe even pork, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
there's all kinds of animals that they use.
Yeah. And so it's an animal product. and animal, and that, remember, we're made of software called DNA.
Right.
And the software that we ingest is going to interact with the software that we have at the epigenetic level, that little bit apart at the very top of the genes. And that's why we spend so much time talking about how it's important to have a clean diet. And so if you're going to have this super clean diet and then you're going to undo it all with a crappy supplement, that's going to undo everything. Yeah. Collagen's interesting, and how do you feel about bulletproof coffee? Because there's, Dave Asprey, started this whole bulletproof coffee thing. And now he sells like collagen that you can put inside your coffee along with the butter and that sort of thing. Are you familiar with bulletproof coffee at all?
I'm not familiar
So
with it.
Dave Asprey is a longevity guy. And I once this podcast gets bigger, I'm going to try and get him on it and just to talk to him about, how he came to some of the longevity things. But he proposed, he's a big proponent of the keto lifestyle, and he talks about bulletproof coffee as like the way to get things going, because you're giving your brain fat to get going for the day, and then collagen to kind of, fuel everything else.
What are the ingredients?
Well, bulletproof coffee is a high quality coffee that's not organic and doesn't go through some crazy manufacturing process. And then a really high quality butter, like a Kerrygold, a tablespoon usually. And then he's got his own collagen powder, which I don't use. And oftentimes bulletproof coffee also you can put in some MCT oil so that you have immediate access to ketones. So basically, if you want to make yourself a bulletproof coffee, you just, get a high quality coffee, you drip it, or French press it, and then you take a tablespoon of butter to each 8 ounces of coffee. You throw it into a blender and mix it together. And it really tastes a lot like coffee with cream. It's really delicious. And it kind of emulsifies into the coffee when you use a blender. And it's just really delicious. And I don't do it much anymore, mostly because I'm off of dairy. And secondly, because it's, I try not to drink my calories. But, I feel good when I do it. But again, it's another way to consume collagen. However, I'm always a proponent of taking in all your nutrients through whole, real food. And so what's wrong with bone broth as the source of collagen?
Exactly. And that's another thing. It's just, I think we're expecting so much from supplements. We want everything in a pill form, right? And we are, in all reality.
Wait. We are taught that. We're taught that because of the pharmaceutical industry, who has told us that the medical establishment is all about giving you a pill to fix you, And that's why, I think I spend so much time trying to bust this myth that menopause is a medical condition. Menopause is a natural thing that all women will go through. It's the privilege of a long life. And so there's no reason why you should expect a pill, potion, or powder to fix your menopause. Menopause is something that we're all going to go through, and all we have to do is embrace it. And that's what we teach in the Meno system. Sorry, big rant over. But,
I tend to agree with you. And, I'm all with you. Again, just like we were talking about calcium or, even fish oil. Yes, it's best to get it from the source, from our foods. However, when I'm busy going to work, and I just want to have access to all these things, I cannot really carry a bottle of bone broth and, a couple ounces of salmon and, all these different things with me. So it just makes it easier, more convenient that when I come home, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to take this collagen powder and put it in my water and just kind of stir it. I sometimes add a little bit of flavor to it just to kind of make it more palatable. But essentially, when it comes to collagen, there are different kinds of collagen within that powder. So you've got to be really careful. Besides the source and the purity of the product, you also want to look for what kind of collagen there is in that product. Yeah. So collagens 1, 2, 3, and 5 are usually good. I recommend a product that's got mainly 1, 2, and 3, but with that one particular product, it's been shown to help with your hair and your skin and your joints and your, vascular system and your gut, because there are so many parts of your body that actually collagen basically glues everything to each other. So it is very important to have.
Well, don't forget, if you're going to take a collagen supplement, if you don't take a vitamin C supplement, you're probably not going to do anything with it, because collagen cross-linking requires vitamin C. And collagen's really interesting because it's really three strands. So if you think about DNA, we all know that the double helix of DNA like this, but collagen adds a third layer. And in order to do the proper cross-linking of the 3 layers, it requires vitamin C. And so a high quality vitamin C is also really, really important for your skin health. And I've actually noticed since I last spoke to you, I started taking vitamin C every day. And I'm looking at myself in the camera here, and I think I know the hair has helped, but my skin looks better and I'm looking younger. And I'm not really doing testosterone. So I think the vitamin C has really helped, and a good quality vitamin C is good. So what I'd like to do now, I think we're going to have to come back and bring you back on another time because we're almost up with time. But I wanted to go into, if we could talk about what manufacturers, people can, if they're going to go on Amazon and buy some supplements, what do you think is the high quality brand that is consistently good?
Well, in general, with all honesty, I do not recommend buying supplements from Amazon because you don't know how they've been stored and all that. Nothing against them, but I just don't trust the source. When it comes to supplements, there are some supplements that are actually available through your healthcare provider. If you have any questions, you can always contact me, send me a message and I'd be happy to help you. But there are some manufacturers that actually do some testing and they have some data that backs up their products.
Sure.
And those supplements are usually available not in the stores, not in the regular, whether it's grocery stores, pharmacies, whatever, but through your healthcare provider. And not every healthcare provider is capable of doing that either, or is interested in even, carrying those supplements. So it makes it a little bit difficult. Things that I usually recommend, the brands are Designs for Health, Pure Encapsulations. Orthomolecular has got great supplements, great studies behind their products. Some of their products have actually got studies that have been published in international journals. So they do some work. Not every supplement is just kind of like, oh, well, take this.
Yeah, that's nice. I do recommend oftentimes, and I'm not the only one. Tiarona Low Dog, who is a pretty well-known, world-renowned herbalist and integrative medicine practitioner and teacher of physicians in herbal medicine and integrative medicine, recommends Gaia pretty regularly. And Gaia is reliable because they actually do test, and they have really strict and stringent manufacturing processes. And so if, just pay attention to, if you're going to Amazon to buy and you want to buy Gaia, you're going to spend a little bit more because they're a little more expensive. But also you want to make sure you buy from, someone that says that they keep it in a warehouse that's temperature controlled. And that's helpful. All the manufacturers that you mentioned are even probably higher standards than Gaia, and would probably be probably a bit more expensive as well. But, I like to compare it to, you're going to spend, so many dollars, or pounds or whatever on your clothes and your car. And sometimes when it comes to spending money on ourselves as women, we always second guess. We started out our talk today about permission, and how I waited for permission to do my hair, and finally gave it to myself. And I wish I'd done it a lot longer ago. And, how long do you want to wait for permission to take some control over this phase of your life? And so, I don't think we need to really wait for that. There's plenty of supplements out there. There's, for hot flashes, we recommend black cohosh. St. John's wort is one that was often recommended for mood. But the problem with especially St. John's wort is there's a lot of drug interactions. And so, the disclaimer here, and the thing I want everyone to understand, is that you're not going to start a supplement without talking to someone. And, particularly you want to, make an appointment with Dr. Green, and then take Dr. Green's recommendation and go to your doctor and make sure that they're okay with it. Because without that, it's, you might be taking your health into your hands. And so it's really important. And where can people find you again?
Dr. S. Green RX at outlook.com. So it's DRS Green RX. At outlook.com.
Outlook.com. All right. Okay. So I want to give people a chance to watch and then send in some questions, and hopefully we'll be able to have you back on. I love it when you come on because it's so much fun talking to you, and you got all this information that I don't have in my head, and so I love sharing that with you. So,
well, thank you.
Awesome.
It's my pleasure, and I hope that I add something to your podcast and to the knowledge of your audience.
You always add something to the podcast. And as a matter of fact, you are number 2 after managing anxiety. So you are actually currently our 2 episodes that we had, number 2 and number 4, because intermittent fasting came up just this week, came up above our first conversation that we had. So, but
we will definitely talk about anxiety too in the next episode. Hopefully,
yeah,
we'll talk
absolutely.
about
We'll get you back and we'll do another one to talk all about what drugs to use for anxiety. That would be great. I'm sure that everyone, not drugs, supplements to use for anxiety. That'd be a great episode just on that alone. So, All right. Well, thanks so much, Sharzad.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon, and I wanted to take a moment to share what one of our community members has achieved since she's been working with me. Amanda has had an amazing transformation. Amanda was struggling with joint pain, hot flashes, forgetfulness, sleeplessness, weight gain, and an angry mood. In addition, she lost her confidence and self-worth as menopause crept up on her. Since joining the Menopause Movement membership, Amanda's quality of life has improved in ways no one could have predicted. She has truly transcended the symptoms of menopause and is now living her best life. This is what I want for everyone in the community. Take a listen to Amanda's story. I just want to show you what's possible when you join the community and do the work. Transcendence is available for you, too. Now, here's Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I am 54 years old and I live in the UK. At this moment in time, I'm in a fairly good place in my life. Recently, I've lost 18 pounds and I feel healthier and more content than I have done in a long time. However, it hasn't always been this way. Back in October 2011, I had an accident which resulted in a serious injury and surgery and subsequently changed my life forever. And over the next few years during my recovery, menopause crept up on me, but I didn't realise what was happening straight away. I started suffering from more joint pain. I went from always being cold to feeling like I was going to internally combust several times a day. I was getting really forgetful, my sleep pattern was terrible, I piled the weight on and looked pregnant, and I felt angry all the time. When things were at their worst, I felt incredibly alone and very down. I lost my confidence and self-worth, and I felt completely misunderstood and confused about what was happening to me. I received very little support or information from my GP, and there was limited information on the internet, but what I really wanted and needed was someone to talk to. The turning point for me was at the beginning of July 2019, when completely by accident, I came across Dr. Michelle Gordon's Facebook page on the Menopause Movement. At that time, she was doing daily live streams, and I started listening to them. I related to a lot of what she was saying, and I was really interested in the variety of topics about menopause that she was talking about, the alternative ways to manage menopause symptoms in a more natural way, and how your mindset is the key factor to transforming your life more positively. I was also really interested to listen to the other ladies in the group and what they had to say. Ladies who had been or were still suffering from similar symptoms to me. How a lot of them had been able to manage their symptoms much better, and how they have turned their lives around and embraced menopause instead of treating it like a demon. Although nervous about taking a risk to join a group I didn't know, I knew that I couldn't and didn't want to carry on living my life the way I was and feeling the way I was feeling. So I made a decision that I too wanted to learn more about menopause, how to manage my symptoms better, and most importantly, learn more about my mindset and the fact that I needed help with changing my outlook on life in order for me to get it back. Life is nowhere near perfect, and some days I still have my struggles. But on the whole, I can honestly say that I am in a much better place than I have been for a long time. And for my down days, I understand better how to manage them so they don't get out of hand. I am now on a journey with a fantastic community of like-minded women, all of whom continue to support each other no matter where we all live. and I no longer feel confused, misunderstood, worthless, or alone. For me, this group has been both a lifesaver and a life changer, and most importantly, the one-to-one private coaching sessions that are available with Dr. Gordon as part of the membership have been invaluable to me. They provide me with an opportunity to discuss more difficult and private issues that I am struggling with, and an opportunity to find solutions to address them. Without doubt, I can wholeheartedly say that I owe Dr. Gordon and her group everything for showing me how to take my life back and, more importantly, take control of it. Joining her membership has been the best thing that I have ever done. However, this course is not for everyone. If you're looking for a quick fix that doesn't cost you any time, money, or effort, then this is not the group for you. But if you're in a similar situation to how I was not that long ago, feeling desperate and at the end of your tether, but are willing to invest in your own future happiness and peace of mind, but are unsure as to what to do, ask questions and talk to Dr. Gordon. And if you choose to take that leap of faith, you won't regret it, because who wouldn't want to take their life back if they had the chance?
Did you know that menopause is not a medical condition? Most doctors don't know this either. I like to say that menopause is the privilege of a long life, and to really take hold of our lives in menopause, we have to unlearn what society and the medical establishment has told us about menopause. Thanks so much for being a part of the menopause movement.